Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Inner World podcast. I am your host, Dr. Pedro Cortina. In this podcast, we aim to explore the most powerful, efficient, joyful, and sustainable models of inner transformation out there. Thank you for joining us today. Let's talk about relaxation today. I don't want to talk about relaxation in the traditional sense of being able to relax in our body and go inside and let go tension from the moment. That's all great. That's all wonderful. And it serves a purpose, especially this particular purpose of connecting with our inner world. What I want to talk about today is I want to talk about existential relaxation. The experience of, or an experience of relaxation that goes beyond the moment or the awareness of the moment, or taking a few breaths and focusing in our bodies. And existential relaxation, something a lot broader, deeper, and incredibly more powerful. Existential relaxation happens when we find ourselves in alignment with what we say, what we think, and what we do. It's a form of deeper understanding of our purpose, our quest, our mission, however you want to call it. It has to do with our ability or capacity to see the bigger picture, to understand the bigger picture, and to transcend the limitations, the polarizations, the preoccupations, the projections of everyday life. So as I was saying, existential relaxation naturally shows up when what we say, what we think, what we do are in alignment. And this is easy to say, and it sounds wonderful. Nevertheless, getting there is a little bit more trickier, and it requires a little bit more depth and understanding of who we are and how is it that our mind works, our emotions work, our thoughts work. So let's begin with probably what I would say is the most important aspect of inner relaxation, which is to harmonize our inner world. And by harmonizing our inner world, I'm not sure I like the word harmonizing, but let's explore this a little bit more. What I'm trying to convey is getting to a space, an internal space, where we are free from internal polarizations. What is an internal polarization? An internal polarization is a very common internal phenomenon that generally manifests when we have two opposing perspectives or hopes or wants that are valid to us or that we seek, probably with the same intensity at different times, but they tend to be opposite to one another, or if not necessarily opposite, they tend to be opposing one another or creating tension between one another. And I use the word polarization because it is an easy one, but the inner phenomenon is a little bit more variable. We can have inner polarizations that have two opposing principles, but there can be more. There can be 3 or 4 or different perspectives on one particular matter. And a very powerful, beautiful way to understand this is when we explore the proposal that has been around in philosophy and psychology for a while, with different people exploring it, that I'd like to call parts work. We seem to have different centers of awareness within us that seem to get activated or engaged depending on the circumstances. Some of these authors call them parts, as in parts of us. And probably the easiest way to understand why some people prefer to call them parts is because we already use this inner language. For example, we are out at a party, and it wouldn't be surprising for someone to turn to someone else and say, a part of me is really having fun, but another part of me really wants to go home and crash. And if you use this example to explore your life, you'll start noticing that this is quite a common internal phenomenon for every single human being. Different perspectives around what we do, who we interact with. It's not not strange to hear. Part of me loves my job, but a part of me does not appreciate my boss's micromanaging, for example. Or a part of me really enjoys art, and a part of me is hypercritical about what I do in terms of producing art, for example. And this shows up also sometimes in relationships, sometimes in relationship with ourselves. We wouldn't be strange or surprising to hear someone say, a part of me is really happy with my decision and a part of me is not happy at all or concerned about my decision. And as I was saying, I'm presenting it in a very simplistic and dualistic way as opposing forces. But if we go inside and pay attention to these polarizations, it's easy to find a third or a fourth position in terms of the same particular experience we're having. So I really like my job, for example, but I really don't appreciate when my boss is micromanaging me. Another part of me may say, it's a good time to quit. You've been at it for long. You should go and do your thing. And then a fourth center of awareness could easily say, oh, you would never get the salary or the income you're getting right now if you branch out on your own. And then probably a fifth one saying, oh, you're always chickening out. You don't have what it takes. And so on and so forth. And some of these positions or some of these criticisms or some of these thoughts could come from a couple or one of them as well. And so this is why it is so important to develop the necessary internal awareness to start noticing what is going on inside. When it comes to internal conflict, internal polarization, internal stress, it's really important for us to have the capacity to become aware of how many of these parts are interacting around a particular issue or a particular theme. And not only how many of them, but to really get curious around what is their main focus for each of them. What are they concerned about? What is their job within our system, our whole system? Why are they supporting the particular agenda or strategy that they are supporting? The more we get to know these centers of awareness within us, these parts of us, the better and the deeper understanding and around them, and the better and the deeper understanding around them, the more tools and more clarity and more capacity we will have to actually address these centers of awareness and be able to update them or actualize them or be able to support them and present them the bigger, wider picture
of who we are as a system. Allowing and supporting them to move beyond their limited perception or excessive concern around their particular point of view in terms of what would be best for the system. So this is, I would say, the most important aspect of this work. When we allow ourselves to explore the different internal positions we have around one particular theme, we are able to open up, receive, and give voice to each of those forces internally. And this is the first step for internal actualization. What we've been doing mostly so far, the majority of us, is that when dissonance shows up inside, so when this polarization arises and we experience stress or misalignment, our first response generally to that is to use force internally to push what we perceive to be the best agenda at the moment and literally overpower all other parts and options and agendas that are being presented. This not only seems intuitively adequate, it seems that this is the most efficient, direct way to go. But as I was saying, not only that, that's the approach we've been offered to be the best when it comes to personal development, mental health, in terms of our society, probably our family, people around us. And this is where all the go approaches come from. Go, push hard, do the hard work. Overcome your insecurities, overcome your lack of clarity, overcome your indecisiveness. But without knowing, what we're doing is we're just powering up one of the positions, one of our internal positions, one of our internal parts. We are pushing that part and making that be the official or the adequate way to move forward. What happens though, and this happens every single time when we haven't actualized our system and we haven't actually updated all the parts that are involved in a particular issue. What happens is that sooner or later, it doesn't matter how much we prop up the part that we believe has the best approach forward, or the one that seems more plausible or more realistic or more adequate or more triumphant. Sooner or later, that part is going to let go of the seat of consciousness. That part is going to allow for other parts to show up. No part has the capacity and the ability to guide and sustain the system consistently. And when this happens, sooner or later, one of the other parts is going to show up. Especially the more we push and force one particular agenda over our other internal needs or perspectives, the more power we give it, the more sure we can be that that power is not going to sustain it. In my first book, Reflection, I present this principle as the 2-for-1 paradox. And straightforward and easy way to understand the 2-for-1 paradox is the moment we solidify an internal position, in that moment, as we are solidifying that particular internal position, we are actually opening up the door for its opposing force. So when we buy into a position, we're actually paying for two or for the second one. That's why I called it the 2-for-1 paradox. And it's a cycle that, if not understood, and if we don't become aware of it, it can just continue throughout life, polarizing from one position to another, from one direction to another, or from a clear direction to doubting, and from doubting to reinforcing, and from reinforcing to overly committing, and from overly committing to experiencing burnout, and from burnout experiencing self-criticism, and from self-criticism experiencing doubt, and on and on and on. So the way to harmonize the system, or the way to balance the system, or the way to resolve the 2-for-1 paradox is through the principle of opening and allowing, through the principle of allowing and building trust, through the principle of opening up and holding internally our positions internally, rather than trying to push and overcome what we sometimes perceive to be our fears or our insecurities. It does appear, or it might appear, as if being somewhat counterintuitive, because of how we've been socialized and trained to address internal misalignment. You can say, what do you mean? Instead of plowing through and pushing the best option forward, are you suggesting I should open up and allow all positions to show up? And to that I would say yes, in a way, but not in a chaotic, let's allow all positions to run the show, because that would be definitely complicated. My invitation is to open up to them for the purposes of profound understanding, not to hand them the reins of our inner world or our system and just hope for the best, but rather opening up to them in the hopes to achieve profound understanding of these inner forces or inner centers of awareness, with the purpose, with the aim of allowing cross-understanding from each of them. Each part of us has a sense of individuality that is separated, and we've talked about separation in a previous episode. Each of our inner parts, each of our inner centers of awareness has this experience of separation, of isolation from the rest. It's as if they feel they are alone, and they're the only ones that have the capacity or the vision or the potential or the knowledge sometimes to be able to move our whole system forward. And that is a misunderstanding of our human condition. But for them, for these parts, that's what they know to be true according to their own experience. Parts tend to show up quite clearly when we're going through challenges in life, and they take upon themselves to take on the challenge, and not only the challenge, for that to be successful from their perspective, they have to also take on the assumptions and the limited understanding that they have about the situation they're going through and life in general at the moment when they are experiencing that difficult situation. We talk a lot about trauma when it comes to mental health. And there is some discourse out there that points to the suggestion that trauma is not actually what happens in terms of what happens to us in terms of the moment when we are hurt or shocked. Trauma is the response we build to that, the assumptions we make around that, the very profound decisions we make given that we were hurt, particularly around how to live in this world, how to relate to others, how to relate to money or society or sexuality or friendship. And if we look at it this way, it's easy for us to understand how when we are experiencing the traumatic event, as difficult and challenging as it may be, or hurtful as it may be, it is everything else that we build around it that generally ends up generating complications for us. In the short term, in the immediate term, when we're experiencing that pain, though, it completely makes sense. And this is a beautiful, beautiful, and very important element to understand this, because in the moment, the assumptions that we make around the hurt we experience, around trauma we experienced, make perfect sense in the moment. If we are in a car accident when we are young and we lose family members, for example, some of the assumptions and decisions that some of our parts may do around that is driving is dangerous, or people we love die. They do. It actually happens in catastrophic situations. And some of the assumptions that our parts in charge in that moment could do around this is, for example, an apprehension to driving, an oversensitivity to risk or travel, an anxious attachment style developing from the loss of the irrevocable, because death is non-negotiable, the irrevocable loss of family members, parents, siblings, for example. But the interesting thing about these assumptions that our parts do is that they would seem to be adequate for survival in the moment. But as time goes by, they tend to definitely get in the way of our joy, of our happiness, and of our capacity to live the best version of life we would like to live at least. So the invitation is to, as we've explored in other episodes, is to develop this inner expansive and welcoming capacity to identify these parts and their assumptions, and to really open to them in genuine, heartfelt curiosity, to understand why is it that they are driven in the way they are. One of the exercises that we do with our clients and that I've suggested in other episodes is finding a quiet place, sitting down or lying down, going inside, taking several deep breaths, and then moving into the space of polarization and kindly and gently allow for the whole experience to be perceived, opening ourselves to the whole experience and kindly and gently trying to identify the different parts of us that have the different positions and the different concerns. And this particular exercise, we invite all parts that have a stake or an opinion around one particular theme in our lives to sit in this table we can visualize. And we can visualize there's tea or coffee or whatever we need. And we allow each of the parts to fully express their point of view while we hold the space for all of them to be able to listen. This may sound pretty straightforward now, but this is something that we do not generally do. As soon as there is an extreme position from one of our parts, we tend to get tense, and we tend to push over the experience with the official approach or the official part at the moment. So what we're doing counterintuitively is we're opening up completely. And we hold the space and we listen to absolutely everything each part of us has to say. And we do it in a way where we allow each of the parts to take turns in sharing their perspective. So for the situation around, car accident, 6 years old, lost mom, lost sibling, my little brother, what I would do is go inside, open up completely to all parts of me that have a stake in that event, and allow for each of them to share fully and completely whatever they need to share about that moment. Allowing each of them to take turns and inviting all other parts that have a stake in this traumatic event to deeply listen, and invite them to deeply listen as well as to be heard, taking turns until all parts have shared whatever they need to share and they feel complete in having shared it. And when this happens naturally, what you would experience is a profound sense of openness, a profound sense of relaxation, a profound sense of understanding. But also what starts to happen is that even our own parts go, oh, now I get it. I totally get it. I totally get why this would be a concern to you, or I totally get why you would rather not drive, or I totally understand why it makes sense. All extreme positions in our inner world make sense. They have a reason. They have a reason that is related to the time and the moment of hardship, the circumstance and the surrounding of hardship, and it makes sense. So as all parts start understanding, where are the counterparts coming from? And why is it that they do what they do? And why is it that they react as they react? This experience of understanding starts literally allowing for a deep form of relaxation. A form of relaxation that many of us are probably not even familiar with. It may sound so foreign because it is a form of internal relaxation that actually resolves this common experience of inner isolation and inner separation that most, or many at least, humans experience nowadays. Understanding, insight, clarity, what we call aha, or or oh, I can see now, I understand now, it makes sense now, it does make sense now. And when we get to this moment, as I was saying before, our experience of openness and relaxation becomes one that is incredibly expansive, profoundly sustained. And it has a sense of wholeness that is exquisite and beautiful to experience. It also comes with this sense of purpose and sense of alignment that is absolutely simply exquisite. So, existential relaxation would be the process by which we allow ourselves to open fully to all internal polarizing positions, allowing ourselves through heartfelt, genuine curiosity to hold for as long as we need it every single one of our parts' agendas. And as we do this, allowing, this is not something we produce, simply allowing for this generalized understanding of why is it that each part has their own particular approach or their own agenda, and how that makes sense given the circumstances and the limitations they had in the moment when they experienced the hardship. And if we do this often, because that's the only way, we cannot harmonize our inner system without practice. We cannot harmonize our inner system without genuine, heartfelt curiosity. We cannot harmonize our inner system by pushing, plowing through, or forcing official agendas internally. The only way to do this is through opening, holding, witnessing, and understanding. Internal understanding. When we understand our inner critics, we liberate them. When we understand our inner fears, we liberate them. When we understand our inner activations, what activates us, we liberate them. Existential relaxation. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And see you next time.